Where is my home? Where is my grandmother's home? Is there a trail of our blood leading to the Atlantic Ocean? Is there a series of our screams pushing us down? Is there a pile of our bones on the other side? My grandmother always said that we were praying people. Says we done talk to God so much we sound like broken records, broken records, broken records. Said we sound like we done talk to God so much. I wonder if he's still listening. But still I find my fingers pressed together, trying to find all the pieces of us that have gone missing, that have been taken, chained, and shackled. Dear God, are you still there? Do you still answer prayers from us? Do we still sound the same as we did back then? Do we still sound like broken records after 400 years? After 400 years, after 400 years, after 400 years, are we still your children? Do you see us still fighting? Do you see us still fighting? Do you see us still fighting? Do you hear amen and not fist and not teeth? Do you hear hallelujah and generations of slave rebellions? Do you hear praise and our still being alive? My grandmother said that we were praying people, said that we were born with our eyes closed and palms together, said that we were made in your image, so you must look like survival. You must look like persistence. You must look like existence. And so we call on our Savior until we hear our names called back. Don't shake this ground until our family trees become orchards again. Don't let my mother bury my spirit cut from her skin. Don't let these people cut me from my skin. My grandmother told me what devil looked like. Said, he sound like drowning. Said, he smelled like rotten. Said, he can't stand the sound of us. So, is that my home? Is that my grandmother's home?
Wow, what a powerful piece by Janay Kelley. And with that, I just want to say good evening and welcome everyone into this Grizzlies community conversation. I am Meghan Triplett, and we are back with another thought-provoking conversation, with today's focus being on the youth perspective. And as we present to you Grizzlies community conversations, amplifying youth voices, today's talk will explore stereotypes, fears in today's climate, and advocating for change from a youth perspective. Amplifying Youth Voices will allow each featured guest to use our platform to have their voice heard, share their experiences and commitment to their communities that affect change. Now, oftentimes, students think that they are too young to advocate for change, but history has proven that you are never too young to fight for what is right. And this discussion will serve as a connection tool to bring awareness, empower the next generation, highlight the amazing work these scholars are doing right now. So allow me to introduce our wonderful panel for today. I'm going to first start with Talisa Elliott. She's a junior at White Station High School and ambassador with Facing History and Ourselves. She is passionate about initiating challenging conversations around the interconnections of sports, race, and cultural histories. She is part of the following programs: Future Business Leaders of America, Ballet on Wheels, and White Station High School's Journalists Association. And upon graduation, Talisa hopes to pursue degrees in sports journalism and history. Talisa, you'll probably take my job, and I am okay with that because I know you're a lot smarter than me. So I'm fine. Talisa, just give us a little wave so we know which one you are. There she is. All right. Let's move on to Brandon Washington. He's also a Facing History and Ourselves ambassador. He's a rising junior at Ridgeway High School and a huge Hamilton fan. He takes great pride in being an ambassador, which to him means to guide and lead future leaders and make sure Facing History group voices are being heard. Welcome, Brandon. Thanks for joining us today. Give me a little wave or thumbs up. Okay. All right. Next up, we have RaeAngela Redwing. RaeAngela Redwing is a senior at Liberty University Academy. She is a member of the NAACP Memphis Chapter, where she serves as Youth Council President. In her spare time, she is also a volunteer at the African Heritage and Culture Village of Memphis, as well as a liaison for WLOK, the first Black radio station in Memphis. Welcome, RaeAngela. There she is. Perfect. Now, we also have Courtney Cox. She is an intern with the National Civil Rights Museum and a senior at the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, where she's earning her degree in journalism and electronic media. After graduation, she hopes to pursue her Master's of Fine Arts in acting or begin her career working for a museum dedicated to African American history. At school, she can be found either working for the student TV newscast, University of Tennessee Today, as the entertainment and lifestyle reporter, and she is a proud alumna of Memphis Central High School and a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I won't hold that against you because that's not my colors, but Courtney, welcome. All is welcome here. Thank you. And we also have Cleveland Yates. He's a sophomore at Florida State University, where he plays guard for the men's basketball team and is a jazz music major. As a Memphis native, he is the co-founder of the Kids Do Positive Things organization and creator of the online show Cleveland and the Community. He's a youth activist who was previously recognized by former President Barack Obama as a 2015 and 2016 Volunteer Service Award recipient. He is designating him as one of the top volunteers in Tennessee, and his goals are to empower youth to pursue their dreams, to understand the importance of community service and leadership. Welcome, Cleveland. You didn't bring your saxophone or something. I thought you were going to play for us. Welcome, Cleveland. So with that, we thank you all for joining us for this big and powerful conversation today. And we're getting into the state of the nation right now and the modern day movement. And I'd like to open up a question for anyone to really just jump in and answer. Courtney, let's start with you, because during the times that we are in right now, this conversation is needed. In the last couple of months, in the last few days, this conversation is needed. And we've been talking about race for all of our lives. But what do you remember being the first initial conversation that you had to have about race?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I think my first true conversation about race definitely happened when I was about 12 or 13, and it was right after Trayvon Martin. And I remember just having like a really hard conversation with my parents, and you know, it felt like the rose-colored glasses kind of came off, and I felt like I kind of grew up in that day because I learned like, oh, like racism didn't just happen like in the 60s, like it's still going on. And now I'm seeing it as like a teenager. So I definitely remember my first conversation. I was probably 12 or 13, like just starting middle school and having these really hard conversations that I didn't think I was going to have so soon.
I'd like to add to that. My first real conversation about race was in sixth grade. The teachers felt it was necessary to like have the boys in one room and the girls in another room, and then they were just talking to us about being a black man in America, how it's dangerous and you need to watch what you're doing. And I was just at the time I was amazed and terrified at the same time. I was terrified because I can end up just like any other black man who was shot. And I was amazed because America is seen as this freedom for all and no oppression type of country, but in reality, we really not like that. So I was just shocked by it.
Now, Courtney, you mentioned about your first conversation being about race was about Trayvon Martin. Does anyone else remember what triggered those early conversations in your life when it came to race?
I would definitely have to say that my father and both of my parents always encouraged the conversation about race. I think it was as early as I was in elementary school. My father would always teach me my heritage and culture. And then after, I had processed all of that learning, he would begin to teach me about how racism still exists in today's time. And not only him telling me, but I could see it for myself. I've been followed in a store before, simply for just being black. I've been, I've experienced systematic racism. I've experienced certain racism, and I've seen it for myself.
So I think that even with the early conversations that I had, I also experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. I think for me, it was also the Trayvon Martin incident is where I first had my first conversation with my parents. And usually, being a basketball player, you know, you have a certain look that you like to walk around the city, like having on a hoodie, having on a hood. Just seem like you can play basketball or something like that. But that even just wearing a hoodie was the first thing that my parents told me, and I was like, what does that even mean? How come I can't wear a hoodie outside? And they said because somebody got shot because they wore a hoodie outside, and just because they had the appearance of somebody that could cause harm to people. And that was the first conversation I had, which has been, my mom always says it, just being comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to settle in with sometimes you can't do what you want to do, sometimes you can't wear what you want to wear just because of the color of your skin. And that was the first conversation I had with them about race.
I think I would definitely have to add on to that. Like everyone else said, I think that is a part of our narrative of being uncomfortable and having to kind of shift towards what's comfortable because of the color of our skin. But I've always gotten comments from my parents like, you're Black, so you can't do this, or, you know, you have to do something different because you can't do what other kids are doing. And so I think that also starts with me in history classes, young as 6th grade, and asking my history teacher questions. Well, why are we facing these certain oppressions, and why are the history books always starting with slavery first? And my first experience of it while experiencing racism, I'm also seeing that the first people that I'm seeing in history, they are in shackles.
And, you know, a lot of you all said that you remember these early conversations, and now we are having the same talks with even the younger generation, whether that be your cousins, nieces and nephews, neighbors, whoever in your life. Has that type of conversation changed in 2020 when you look at the early, a lot of y'all are a lot younger than me, so the early 2000s?
Absolutely. I believe that the conversations have shifted and changed a little bit more and have got a little bit more intense since the recent murders that we have experienced and seen for ourselves right on camera, you know, right on social media. The conversations got a little bit more intense, and it, in a way, kind of woke America up. And it caused a lot of, especially the young generation, to go through protests and riots and organize things throughout social media to bring about change. Of course, you know, the project of us protesting peacefully got hijacked. And, you know, even with us still trying to move forward, there are peaceful protests that still are going on right now. But the news coverage isn't covering the fact that we still have peaceful protests. The only protest that they really shine light on was the riots and the protests that got hijacked by another group that was opposite from Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, I would say that the conversation definitely has changed for me. Even just because I've gotten older, been younger, it feels like there's not as much for like a 5-year-old kid as there is for a 20-year-old man nowadays. The target is definitely higher on our backs the older that we get, and it seems like because social media is out here, I wouldn't say that it's even gotten worse. It's just everybody can see it for their own selves now, and it's been happening, but now everybody knows what's happening. And so the conversations have gotten worse where everybody knows what's going on. So I think just trying to figure out what we can do together is the best solution for that.
And to add on to what all of them was saying, I feel like now the conversation isn't as sugar-coated as it used to be, because now it's right in our face. You can't try to sugarcoat what happened to George Floyd. You can't sugarcoat it no more. So now I feel like the kids that was sheltered from it, it's just all come rushing in, and they're not getting like the sugar-coated version that most of us probably got. They're getting the cold-hearted facts about what happened, why it happened, and things like that.
And to add on to that, I feel like there's like this sense of urgency. It's like I have to explain to them earlier and earlier and earlier what they may see, because I don't want someone who's younger than me to not know, how to act, how to dress, and then something happens to them. So there's this sense of like fear. Like the older I get, I'm starting to develop a fear that like my mother had for like my cousins. And it's like, I shouldn't have to have this fear at 21. I just turned 21 in July, and I'm starting to carry the same fear and stress and trauma that like my mother is carrying, my like grandmother carries. Like, it's just like everyone is just like on eggshells, and it's so sensitive. Like the situation, the conversation, everything is just, it's a lot for everybody to handle.
And to add on to what Courtney just said, what she said kind of reminded me of the statement PTSD, standing for post-traumatic slavery disorder. And a lot of us are feeling that generational trauma, that generational fear from what our parents may have experienced throughout systematic racism or racism in general, and just the police brutality that they experienced or seen for themselves in an earlier time. That fear has passed down to us, because they are explaining to us the importance of, like what Cleveland said, not being able to wear a hoodie, not, reaching into your pocket for anything, being completely safe with every move that we make simply because we're Black. And so for me, that generational fear has passed down, because now I have two younger brothers, African American males, that I have to explain to them, as well as help my parents explain to them how not to wear a hoodie, how to walk, how to talk when you're approached by the police. So what Courtney said is absolutely correct.
I mean, I think all of you all have mentioned and said the word fear. And, that's something that I also grew up with. How have you all dealt with this fear? And if you're still trying to figure out, what are you all doing for this fear that you are feeling right now, especially with what we are seeing, what we just saw the other day as well on social media?
I have been channeling that fear into blending it in kind of with my passion to help the Black community and to better educate, teenagers that are my age and younger on the history and culture that they are, to let them know that, hey, Black is beautiful. No matter what we are going through at this time, no matter the police brutality, always remember that you are worth something. Because, for a young Black girl or a young Black male to have to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, seeing a video of a Black man being kneeled on and just witnessing this racism, it kind of takes a toll on them mentally. And it can also make them believe that, hey, my skin is not good, and that's simply not the truth. And I want to be able to give them that encouragement and to also teach them how to act when being approached by a police officer. And that kind of saddens me, and it's very unfortunate that we even have to teach our young children this and teach other teens this, and that we even have to have these conversations, because the police are there to protect and serve. And in so many other words, we haven't seen that as much as we should for our people.
I think I would have to add on to that. Just paraphrasing off of a quote of James Baldwin, and he talks about how your oppressive systems, if they are rooted deeply into my existence, then that basically it counteracts everything. And so everything that we're going through, even with RaeAngela talking about the post-traumatic slavery disorder, that is deeply rooted into our existence as Black people. And so I think that carries with us everywhere. And so when you talk about fear and how you can channel that differently in what we're doing now, I think that unfortunately is something we do well, is turning fear into joy, turning fear into love, turning fear into anything that we can allow to bloom, because the opposite of despair is hope. There are so many different opposites that Black people do so well, with laughter, with comedy, with TV shows, with writing. There's so much stuff that we do, and we do it well because we are the only ones that can tell our stories the best, because it's deeply rooted into our existence.
And to add on to what Talisa said, that also reminded me of, our young people, we can find good ways, and it's important for us to find good ways to communicate, to effectively express our emotions, because if we don't, then it can channel into, an anger, resentment, or wanting to do a riot, such as what Martin Luther King said. Martin Luther King once said that riots are the language unheard. And we've definitely seen that a lot of our young people, they get together and it's built up, like what she said, post-traumatic slavery disorder is building up. So I think it's important that Black people take on into therapy, Black people take care of their mental health, and that we also, like she said, channel it into something good, into our music, into our writing, kind of adjusting our situation the best way that we can until we can bring about change. And once we get that change, then, the mission is complete.
Yeah, I would like to...
I think also...
You can go ahead.
I think also I have been in conversation with, I did the ACLU Advocacy Institute with a whole bunch of Black students as well, and we were in a Black affinity group, and talking to them, they had so much anger, there were so many different emotions, and I think that also when taking into account anger, fear, when you're disrupted, when you don't know what to do, and especially for that narrative of a Black person when fear is definitely embedded into you when you're alive, I think that it's all valid. And so I won't say whether rioting is right or whether it's wrong, but I think that all emotions encaptured with Black people, it's all valid because we have the right to feel all of the emotions that have been deeply rooted into oppressive systems. Over good.
One thing I would say as far as fear, for me personally, fear has been over things that I can't control. So something that for example, would be me driving and going the speed limit and everything, but getting pulled over just because of the color of my skin. That's something that's not in my control. And you don't know if that cop has had a bad day, if something happened at home, or if he, LeBron James just said it the other day, or if he just went out the house with the intentions of straight up killing a black man or a Black woman. So that fear is always going to be with me until there is a change as far as that. But yeah, there's definitely still a fear today.
And to add, for me, dealing with the fear of getting stopped by a police officer and that just being the end of it, I'm trying to become more qualified, and I'm becoming more determined to join the police force or law enforcement to be that change from inside and be that voice of Black people and try to help change how other law enforcement officers deal with certain situations.
And to add on to what Cleveland said, the fear that you feel is just like what Talisa said, is absolutely valid. The fear that we feel, the anger that we feel, the hurt that we feel generationally is so valid because of everything that we have been through, everything that we are continuing to fight for. I think we're tired of being tired, in no other words. We're tired of having to post hashtags. We're tired of constantly having to say RIP to another Black man that was hurt or killed. Just recently, someone was shot 7 times, and now he is paralyzed from the waist down by a police officer in front of his children. So when you see something like that, you absolutely have the right to feel hurt, to feel fear, to feel scared. And it's okay for humans, because we're natural, we're humans. We're going to feel emotional about things. But I think that we also need to be effective with trying to bring about change together, And just us seeing this every day as young people. Yes.
And RaeAngela, I know you were talking about, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, about the police shooting of Jacob Blake, who was shot in the back 7 times, that we just learned about this week. And that adds on to the countless people that we don't know about, but the ones that we have known about, whether that's George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. And when you take these situations like this, and I know we're talking about how to deal with this fear, but especially a time like this, has this affected your day-to-day activities, especially right now? Because And I know it has affected mine. How has it affected you all?
I think I'll go ahead and start with that. It has definitely made me a lot more cautious about what I do, how I look, how I act, because, you know, I go to a predominantly white institution. And so I definitely have to carry myself a certain way. I have to make sure, you know, I'm not out too late. I feel like I have to do so much more just to live a normal life that, like, my white friends would have no clue about. And it's definitely something that, like, it weighs down on you. Like, it takes a toll on you. Like, there are days where I'm just sitting in my room and I'm like, I shouldn't have to sit here and, you know, make a plan on, like, if something happens to me, you know, here's who to call. I shouldn't have to do that, but it's something that has to be done because, like, the climate is so volatile. It's like, it's so unpredictable. Like, I don't know what someone could wake up and have ill intentions towards me or towards someone who looks like me. So it's very difficult to maneuver through this world right now. And it's very difficult as someone who is in college, who is Black, and at a school that is predominantly white.
And to respond to Courtney, that reminds me of something that my parents always tell me, and that is that we have to be 2 times better. You know, if you're in an all-white workplace, you have to be 2 times better. You know, and that's just the way that society has made us. Like I said, that's almost part of systematic racism, is that we have to be 2 times better just to be as good as the next white man or good as the next white woman in the workplace, in college, in any, you know, area, especially in your situation.
And something that we have also had to deal with are stereotypes of Black people. And a lot of these cases have been off of stereotypes of Black people, what we cannot wear. Cleveland, you talked about it too, as an athlete. Brandon, I want to ask you first, how have those stereotypes of Black people, what you can wear, what you cannot wear, how you can act, what you cannot do, how has that affected you just growing up, and what you also have believed about yourself, that what the outside world has always said about Black young men?
One of the stereotypes that I try to live down is the one where people say if a Black man get too mad, he just black out with rage. So I try to keep myself as calm as possible, so I won't be just another stereotype or statistic about a Black man. And the stereotype that the person would, like what Cleve was saying, I'm like, I wear black a lot, and normally I wear a black hoodie or a black jacket, and when I catch myself like putting my black hood on, I'd be like, oh my God, let me make sure ain't no police officer around. Because as soon as I put on this black hood, I automatically fit the description of a suspect from a break-in or something like that. And it just in my everyday life, it just, I can't even explain it. My bad.
I know it's difficult. It's hard. It doesn't make any sense. Cleveland, can you add to that too?
Yeah, for sure. To piggyback off Brandon, as far as the hood thing, even if there's, not even police officers around, you don't know, like, just like the young man that was shot, that was jogging around the neighborhood. I mean, it could be just random people that could also not be having a good day, or say that they want to kill a Black person. So that's a stereotype. Also, growing up, for me personally, there was always a stereotype that I was very confused on and did not understand until I got older, and that was you don't talk like a Black person. And I would get that a lot growing up, and I wouldn't understand what they meant. I mean, at first it felt like, should I take this? Is this a compliment? And I was like, of course it's not a compliment that I don't talk like a Black person. What does that even mean, to talk like a Black person? So things like that have always stuck with me, that I just did not understand, that some people think that Black people aren't simply educated, is what they're really saying, that we don't sound like we're educated, I guess. So those are different stereotypes that have always followed me all my life, honestly.
I think to dive even a little deeper into that, is to talk about narratives and what our stories kind of represent, because it's crazy, like RaeAngela was saying, you know, our systemic racism and how that's funneling through our systems, and how it's honestly fueling every literal construct in America and how they look at us. And so I think that in something in my history classes, we talk a lot about how narratives are seen. So is the conqueror or the victor writing the story? Is the successor writing the story? Who's writing the story? And for us as Black people, we already have someone who has written in our books how we will already live out. And I think that in the Jacob Blake case, with him being shot 7 times, they intended for him to die, but he did not. And so I think in that, him not dying was already not fulfilling the author's story. And is our white counterparts are our authors, and our systems are our authors, and our entire construct is our author. Our history is our author. So I think that just takes a little step further into who we are as Black people.
And to add to what Cleveland was saying about, you know, when people tell you that you don't talk Black or you don't act Black, like I said, post-traumatic slavery disorder. Since the times of slavery, they didn't want us to be educated. They didn't want us to be smart. They didn't want us to be able to think by ourselves. So when you hear a young Black person saying there, when you hear someone make fun of you for not sounding Black, that's the most offensive term that we can ever use against ourselves. Because what you're basically saying is that because I'm Black, I shouldn't sound educated, I shouldn't be educated, and it's weird. And that's what, growing up, I think I experienced a lot of. And I would simply break down to them, explain that this is how I'm supposed to sound. I'm supposed to be educated. I'm supposed to be an educated young Black woman. And I shouldn't be made fun of for it. And I think that a lot of our young people think that being smart is not okay. And like I said, since slavery, they didn't want us to be educated. They still don't want us to be educated. Now they're just using the pen against us instead of the whip.
That was powerful. I made a noise. I'm sorry. That was a lot. Thank you, RaeAngela, for that. Thank you so much for that. That moved to me. We talked about who's writing the story and talking about them telling our stories, and it is and all of our prayers go to Jacob Blake that he'll get the opportunity to tell his story. And that also falls along the lines of the media telling our story too, because when these stories come out, what's the first thing they always say? What did he have on? What did he look like? Was he yelling? Was he arguing? Argumentative? Did he follow the rules? Did he not say anything? And Courtney, I know you're a journalism major right now. What is something that you would like to be changed, even with the media, and how differently they portray us and portray victims when it comes to social injustices?
So I'm going to take this opportunity. I want to task every news director, you need to hire more journalists of color. You need to hire more Black journalists. You need to hire more Latinx journalists. You need to hire more journalists of color, because there is no way that you can accurately represent a community if you do not have someone who looks like someone of that community. It is frustrating to sit here and see someone who isn't of that community to go in there and try and pull out a story, and then when they're like, oh well, they don't want to talk to me, and it's like, well, you don't look like them, you don't talk like them, you don't act like them, so they're not going to feel compelled to come to you. So I'm challenging news directors, America, the universe, across the galaxy, like, if you really want to make a difference, you need to start in your newsroom. You need to start saying, if it was racist, call it racist. Don't dance around the word. If it just call it what it is. Don't feel the need to tiptoe to make your white viewers more comfortable. No, you're reporting the news. You're reporting the truth. If it was racism, it's racism. Don't try and mask it as anything else. So I'm going to get off my soapbox. I feel very passionate about that. As someone who has interned at a news station, I'm just like, listen, we're going to call it what it is in 2020.
And Courtney is graduating. So if anyone wants to hire someone, this is the person that you need to be calling. Actually, all of our panelists is someone that you need to be calling, because obviously they know what they're talking about and they can do some good. Sorry, Angela, you can go ahead.
Well, Courtney, that's what you're here for. You know, you can be the first start for that. You can be the first change for that. And I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree that we need to see more Black faces within the news because, you know, a lot of times when we turn on the news, we see something that affects us. Most of the time when we turn something on, it's something in our neighborhoods. It's something that is affecting us. And most recently, definitely, it would have been nice to see a Black journalist or a Black news reporter up there talking about how the justice system is unjust.
I would like to add, you can go ahead, Brandon. It's good.
So I want to piggyback off what Courtney was saying earlier, like calling it how it is, because lately, so I don't be able to watch like the actual news. I have to pull it off of YouTube. So the news clips I be seeing of like CNN, they be calling out the president, and they don't be trying to, like, when one of his representatives be trying to sugarcoat what he be doing or trying to dodge the question, they be like, no, this is what he said, this is what he did. This, you can't say this is not racist. You need to call it what it is. And then one time I was watching this press conference, and the reporters, they just kept on asking the same question because his press secretary wasn't answering the question. She kept on dodging the question. They like, no, we asking this. We don't want that answer. We want the answer to this question. And I was like, yes, y'all need to stop letting people sugarcoat things. Stop letting them dodge questions. So I completely agree with you. You say we need to just come out and say it.
I just wanted to add one more thing about this. Representation is key. The reason why I picked the major that I picked and I picked the path that I chose was because I woke up every morning and my parents would have it on a specific news station, and I saw people who looked like me reporting the news. So I was like, oh, snap, okay. I was like, I can like do this. So like it's really important to see those Black faces, you know, in whatever career, because you have no idea who you are influencing when you're up there behind that desk, when you're up there, you know, reporting. Like, I mean, like Meghan, like you have no idea who you're influencing just by being in the space you're in. Like I'm talking, it could be, I don't know who's a really famous sports journalist, because I'm not a sports girl, but you don't know who you're influencing. So just for Black people in those spaces, like just know, like whatever you're going through is not in vain. It's because there is another Black person who is going to follow after you and is going to carry your mission further.
Thank you for that, Courtney.
Can I attest to that?
Yeah.
Someone who wants to be, I'm aspiring to be a sports journalist. Some of my favorite are Jemele Hill and Carrie Champion, and they are incredible. And especially Jemele Hill as she uses her interconnection of race, culture, and sports, because representation is definitely key. I mean, seeing her on the screen, or she's not with ESPN right now, but seeing her on the screen, it inspires me. And I know that me pushing it inspires someone else. And so when you're talking about being in the writer's room or being behind the scenes or even in front of the scenes, you have to have representation from every angle. So yeah, sorry, Meghan.
No, you're good. You're definitely right, because the same journalists that you just mentioned, Jemele and Carrie, they inspired me, and they're very vocal about the things that they've had to go through to get to the point in their careers. And we talked about representation and getting our voices out there more, and having that when it comes to even to the news cycle. You know, your generation has some powerful thing called an iPhone. We've seen people do it themselves with social media. We've seen the impact that social media has with so many different things, whether that's the ALS Bucket Challenge, the Me Too movement, and we just most recently saw the Blackout Tuesday. How do you all think social media can help and impact social justice, especially with everything that's being posted right away and you all being able to tell your stories instantaneously?
Social media doesn't definitely have it does definitely have a huge impact on our movements, especially for young people, because in one click of a button, we can communicate with people all across the world. And so I think that people really realized how big social media could help our platforms with fighting social injustice when there was people all out of the country protesting and marching for Mr. George and for Ahmaud Arbery and for all of the recent deaths that have happened. There were people all across the world that were protesting and marching, and they became very much in contact with what was going on in these small little states and cities. And just, by social media, like you said, Blackout Tuesday, that was started by a group of young people. So I think that social media can be used for good and can be used for young leaders who want to get out and connect with other young leaders to start up peaceful protests, to start up, different movements. And NAACP, we definitely use social media as, a platform to help us. So.
My bad. Also, to piggyback off what she was saying, social media, it can help bring us all together because, like before today, it's only one person on this panel that I actually knew in real life, but now I get to hear all of y'all ideas on topics and perspectives. So with social media, it can help us hear from people most of us is in Tennessee right now. We can hear people from New York. We can hear people's perspectives from Alabama. So with social media, it can help bring us together and hear everybody's story and not just the people around us.
I would also like to just add that, we say that social media impacts the youth, but I think it's switched around, that the youth really touch and, impact social media and, honestly vice versa. But I think we have more of an impact on social media considering the climate we're in now, where we have to be inside with our phones and our devices. And, this is how we're communicating now, whether you have one or not. We're finding some way, like right now we're on a Zoom call. So we're finding different ways to bring awareness to certain issues that need to be shedded light on. And I think that when this generation comes to social media and how we impact it, how we encourage conversation, and whether it's just with a post or whether it's Blackout Tuesday, we are some real hitters. Okay, I'm serious. We really are. Our generation, we can really run it up. And we don't just post a blackout. We literally go make some shake. We have protesters and we have organizers who are not just posting, they are literally on the front lines right now. It's been a blessing to be in conversation with people who actually go beyond the phone. And even while we're in quarantine, people are going beyond the phone. And so even if it is a challenge, or even if it's a dance, and even if it's Beyonce's Black is King, she's still putting in that effort. We're still putting in this extra step. Do I think we should be at the forefront and other people should be as well? Yes. Should it be swapped? Yes. But we are still making some shake. And so I think we have more of an impact on social media than social media has ever had an impact on us.
Yes, thank you so much, Talisa, because social media is you guys are doing so much on social media, and it's not just about a hashtag. I think that's been the biggest thing it's not about a hashtag, it's not just about a picture, but you all have shown a lot of the other generations that it's about action, and it's about demanding change, it's about protesting, and also about voting, which is, we'll get to later on in this discussion. RaeAngela, I wanted to ask you a question because you are one of the youngest on this panel, and we're still mourning the passing of civil rights icon John Lewis, and in the wake of it, and then also the death of George Floyd and just so many countless others. And I want to point out that, similar to John Lewis being one of the youngest members of the Civil Rights Big Six and not being afraid to fight for justice, you're also doing the same thing. How are you doing your work with the NAACP at such a young age, and who and what inspires you to get into activism?
What definitely inspired me was my father. My dad, he is very huge on supporting Black people, fighting for Black people, you know, protesting, marching, doing whatever he can. And so he's always had this fire in him and this passion in him and this love in him for the Black community. And, you know, not to sound cliche, but it definitely passed out to me. And so naturally, ever since I was young, I've always had that passion and that fire to, you know, advance the Black community, to fight for the Black community. So I think it kind of came natural. And I started at such a young age, but because I've always had that fire, I never really looked at it as me being the youngest person in the room. I looked at it as, you know, just me doing what I'm supposed to do to help my Black community. So I think that he definitely inspired me, and then me doing my research on other great Black leaders, especially John Lewis, me hearing their stories, me reading and researching on them, it kind of made me want to teach other people about the magic that they had, to be able to go out there on the front lines, go out there and, you know, risk it all, you know. And young people, especially at my age, we don't have anything to lose. You know, we don't have families that we have to go back to. We don't have anything to lose. So, you know, with me taking that, it gives me that fire to be able to go out there and do what it is that I do. I think the NAACP helped me a lot with getting out there and getting on different platforms. NAACP is a wonderful organization to start with and to join on to. The bond that I've created there is magical. And I think that, you know, it's not over. I'm still going to continue. I'm still going to keep fighting and doing what it is that I do. And, you know, another person that deeply inspired me, believe it or not, was Tupac Shakur. A lot of his poems, a lot of them, when you look deep-rooted into it, it deals especially with the Black community. It talks about the Black community and Martin Luther King, and, you know, all of these different leaders that we have. When you research and read about them, you can't do anything else but feel inspired. So that was my biggest inspiration.
Right. As John Lewis said, continue to get in good trouble, RaeAngela, and I can't wait to see the good trouble that you continue to get into. Cleveland, you're also someone who has been recognized as a student who has demonstrated acts of compassion, leadership, commitment, and service in your local community. In today's climate, what steps are you taking to continually to make change, whether it be personally or just for the community?
Yeah, for me, you know, I moved to Florida at the age of 17. I started college at an earlier age than most people do. So moving here definitely gave me a broader sense of what's happening outside of just Memphis. Of course, in Memphis, I had the organization, the Kids Do Positive Things, organization that talked about community service and leadership and things like that. But coming to Florida really broadened what's going on in the world and just how other people think, how other people move, the different things that people say. I guess it's just it really helps me become a well-rounded person. It really helped me become a well-rounded person by just getting out and seeing other places, other pieces of the world, I guess.
And now as we look at, you know, I know we're having this powerful conversation on a Zoom call, and as we look to still push for change and to still use our voices, what is something that society can do more specifically to hear the younger generation more and to have these conversations with the younger generation?
About one, they can give us a platform to voice our opinions and things like that, and then they can make it seem like they're not just hearing us and then going about their day. They need to let us know they actually listening and taking our opinions into.
I think I can add on to what Brandon was saying. I definitely think that you should pass the mic to the youth because we have really big voices. I think you should leave the mic, leave it there, and then just allow us to do our thing, because I've been in conversation with so many people in our age range, and you just be just appalled. You'd be so shocked at to what they have to say. And I think it's another thing of taking us extremely seriously, because believe it or not, we are actually going through some of the motions and some of the issues that we deem of like surreal importance. And so I think you should really just pass the mic, leave the mic, especially for people of color, especially for Black people, especially for Natives, especially for those in marginalized communities, and pass the mic to Black women. I mean, pass the mic and leave it there, and then allow them to do what they know best, which is tell their own stories.
I think a lot of times the older crowd or the adults, when speaking of the young people, they often like to say that, you know, the young people or the children are our future. But in reality, we're your present, because everything that we learn, everything that we instill, everything that we release now is what's going to determine the future. So I think that, like what she said, pass us the mic, listen to what we have to say, because we have stories to tell. We have, you know, history that we've learned that we like to, you know, fight for. We have things that we genuinely care about when it comes to the Black community. We don't want to grow up in a society with systematic racism. We don't want to grow up in a society where racism is okay. We don't want to grow up in a society where we constantly have to see Black men getting, you know, kneeled on. So I think that now, like she said, the mic needs to be passed down to us. You need to listen to what we have to say and, you know, support our platform, support the youth councils, support, you know, the young people who are out there trying, and just watch how far we can take it.
I also would like to add, just listen. Like, you know, if we feel the need to correct you, don't take it personally. We're correcting you because we see that something is wrong and that we're trying to fix it while we have the time to fix it. So I feel like for, you know, those who are in power, you know, if a younger person comes to you, don't take it personally if we feel the need to correct you. It's okay. There is no age requirement to be an activist. There's no, you know, you need to be 21 to be able to lead a protest. You need to have your ID to, you know, say what's on your mind. No, if someone who is, you know, 13, 14, 15, if they feel so compelled to say something, you should give them the platform to say it, and then don't just brush it away. Take it, absorb it, and then use what they're saying and actually make the change.
Yeah. For me, I would say, like, one thing I would love to see is, like, maybe even like a parent movement in our communities. Like, I know there's many organizations as far as like parents or mothers against drunk driving or things like that. I mean, also there might already be an organization like this, but maybe even like a parents against, you know, Black kids getting killed every day or something. You know, there just needs to be, I think, because without my parents, I know that I would not have been involved in the community and in different organizations without their support and them telling me about it, because that's where, for most of us, I mean, I know that's where the conversation first started, that was with our parents. So I think parents really got more involved and had their own organization that was really just really formed together and went against what's going on. That can help us out a lot too.
And I wanted to just add on and quote something right quick. Tupac Shakur, one of my favorite poems by him is "The Rose That Grew from Concrete." And so us being, you know, young Black teens ourselves, that is definitely what we are. We are the rose that is growing from concrete. With everything that's going on around us, we are still finding ways to adjust and to make change throughout, you know, our circumstances, and us having to be 2 times better. And so we're definitely, you know, putting on that pathway to greatness. And so I'm proud of everyone that's on here.
Angela, just well said. You kind of pretty much wrapped it all up for us. I want to open up to anyone who else, if they wanted to add anything on here. I know a lot of you all are part of several organizations and you all are doing some amazing work. if you want to just, add that into here before we sign off, of just saying how people can sign up or help with the work that you all are doing.
I encourage all of our youth to join on to NAACP at www.naacpmemphis.org. We start from middle school all the way up for our youth council. And then if you are in college, you can also join the adult council. But again, there's no age on activism. So
I would advise all of our youth to check out www.facinghistory.org. And as an ambassador at Facing History, we really talk about how those historical paths, how they have turned, how we can use those and we can move forward, how we can shape that, move forward into the future. And considering we are the future, we're still making changes, how we can still disrupt, dismantle, and break down certain barriers that are still keeping us down today. And one thing that we're doing to encourage the youth is called Engage Memphis, and it's to make sure that the youth understand what voting is, understand that voting is extremely important, even as to going to cast a vote and understanding what voter suppression is. And so just wrapping our heads around that, even if you can't vote, but just understanding that there is an importance in using your voice.
Yeah. First, of course, I want to thank the National Civil Rights Museum and the Grizzlies staff and the Memphis community and all for the opportunity to be here, of course. But for about the past 10 years of my life, it's just been about service and giving back to the community. So I want to encourage everybody just to get involved with the community. It all starts with something little. Doing what you can, do it while you can, while we're still young. Let's get out there and let's do what we can, just so we can make the world a little better of a place for all of us.
I'd like to add on to what she said about facing history. Facing history, we look at the past to help us better prepare for the future and better build a future, so we don't repeat what happened in the past. And we do just what happened to repeat it, we don't make the same mistakes we did. We won't be on the wrong side of history. And to people that feel like they might not want to join an organization, might not want to join Facing History or might not have the time, just get involved in your school, like student council. Like I was a secretary for student council at Ridgeway, and just being the secretary, I still had a voice. So even if you don't got time after school or you don't got that much time, just be involved in something that's cool.
Well, I guess I'll wrap everything up. Just to speak specifically to college students, specifically Black college students, don't stop. Keep going. We need you. I need you. Everybody on this panel needs you. We need more Black doctors. We need more Black therapists. We need more Black social workers. We need you to further the mission. So please, I understand college is hard. College is rough. It is not for the weak at heart, but you have to keep going, because there are so many people, past, present, future, who depend on you. So keep going. Don't stop, because once you are at that finish line and you got that degree, you good. So I believe in you, because I'm with you.
Thank you so much, Courtney. That was the best way to wrap this up. And we have heard some powerful, amazing perspectives from our next generation of leaders. Here they are. I'm not included in that. These are the future generation leaders. They're so amazing. And so on behalf of the Memphis Grizzlies, I want to thank the panelists for their time today and those who are tuned in. I hope today's discussion provided some much needed insight and dialogue on today's climate and how we can continue to advocate for change and have these thought-provoking conversations with peers and clearly with amazing scholars of all ages. Now, if you are a student listening, I hope you learn just a little bit more and leave here feeling inspired to have these conversations with your fellow students, your teachers, your guardians. And I hope you understand you are never too young to fight against social and racial injustices. And also, if you're not just a student, but someone from my generation, the older generation, I know that you definitely learned something today, because I definitely did. And if you are 17 and older, this is very important. I would like to challenge everyone, please register to vote or become a poll official in this upcoming
federal election, if you are compensated for your work, and it is the best way to exercise your civic duties before you are within voting age. And also, please make sure your parent or guardian is registered to vote. The last day to register to vote in Tennessee is October 5th. Now, for more information about voter registration deadlines and becoming a poll worker, please visit govotetn.com. I am Meghan Triplett, and this has been Grizzlies CommUNITY Conversation, Amplifying Youth Voices. Thank you so much.